Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the United States. What is this creation, this remarkable creation, and perhaps the crowning jewel of the Enlightenment is the Declaration of Independence, which was taking great ideas of the Enlightenment and bringing them to fruition and creating a country that was unlike anything that had ever existed before. I find that a fascinating thing. Of course, Thomas Jefferson, who penned the Declaration of Independence, I'd say about 80% of the Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson. And there was a committee, and they gave advice, and they took things out, and they changed things here and there. But the main body of work is indeed Jefferson's. And it is a magnificent document. And it is, indeed, the crowning jewel of the Enlightenment. Now, one of the great influences of the Declaration of Independence was John Locke. And John Locke was a fascinating philosopher who influenced, obviously, Jefferson. You know, Locke basically said that all men are created equal and that they are entitled to life, liberty, and property. Now, Jefferson used John Locke's sentiments, but he didn't want to plagiarize them completely, so he changed the third, and that is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's pure Jeffersonian phrasing. You know, Thomas Jefferson was not too fond of things that happened once we got to a constitution. He called it a gathering of demagogues. And of course he wasn't there. He was in France at the time. And John Adams wasn't there. He was in England at the time. And of course, a constitution was created. And they created this country, which is a fascinating country because it's unlike anything that had ever existed before. The office of president was something new, totally different. Of course, our Constitution, our presidency, our form of government have influenced hundreds of constitutions, hundreds of governments. It's an amazing thing. I have a friend of mine who just became an American citizen. I'm so proud of him. He worked long and hard on this. And he asked me a question, and I thought it was an interesting one. He said, walking down the street and talking to the average American, how many will know the three rights of the Declaration of Independence? And so I asked him before we went any further, I said, are you definitely talking about the Declaration of Independence and not the Bill of Rights or anything like that? He said, see, you don't even know. And I said, of course I know. I said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are those three rights, those inherent rights endowed by our Creator, as Jefferson put it. The thing is that the Declaration of Independence, which is this magnificent document, is not our governing document. It was a statement saying that we were no longer going to be part of the British Empire, that we were going to become something new, something revolutionary, and eventually we were. And so the United States is a fascinating and most unique adventure. As time has gone by, we see so many things changing. You know, one of the greatest joys of my life and one of the greatest privileges of my life was to teach. And I will always hold that's so close to my heart is the most wonderful period of my life. I've done lots of interesting things, but there's nothing like taking a group of students and molding them, teaching them, and getting them to understand, to question, to look, to try to understand. Because this is what made and created the United States, was the fact to question, to challenge. And as the clock is about to strike 6, I will tell you that many things are taking place in the United States which are a little worrisome. In fact, are completely against the ideals of the creation of this country. We have the Democratic and Republican parties who have hijacked the system. There is a snowball's chance in hell for a third party to get any great traction. It's almost impossible. 6. The thing is also, there were things that happened in the formation of the United States that are very important. First off, we had the Bank of the United States. What was the Bank of the United States? It had everything to do with our money system, with supplying finances, helping with the United States in very important ways. Well, we had the first bank. It kind of went the way of the dodo. Then they instituted the second bank, and that was finished off by Andrew Jackson, who made mincemeat of Nicholas Biddle, who was in charge of the bank. And then we've gone through many different issues. Today we have something called the Federal Reserve. And you know something? Its title, its name, is very misleading because there's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve. It is not a part of the United States government. It has no allegiance to the United States government. It does not have to follow the rules of the United States government. It creates our money and charges interest to the United States for doing so. Why can't we just make it ourselves? But we can't. It's not going to happen. And so, here we are in the year of 2017, looking at various things that are getting a little problematic when it comes to government. Because remember what John Locke had said initially, that if a government becomes a tyrant, it is not the right but the obligation of the citizens to overthrow it. I think a lot of people in this country should read John Locke. Quite fascinating. You know, our founders were brilliant people. They were well read. They understood the ancients. They understood history. And as my friend mentioned, who walking down the street will know the 3 rights in the Declaration of Independence? I told him probably maybe a handful at best. And maybe that's even being optimistic. But ladies and gentlemen, we need to be wary. We need to look at what's happening with government. Because I've come to the conclusion that the Republican and Democratic Party, they have very little difference. Sure, they make all kinds of noise, but you know something? You walk away, you go in the back rooms. They're not really totally interested in what happens to the citizens. Their main objective is getting support from various interests to increase their power. And so this republic, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a democracy. It has never been a democracy. We're a democratic republic, very much like Rome or Greece. I always get a kick out of the fact that we always think this is a democracy. You'd think we'd learn, but we don't. We have the Pledge of Allegiance, which is... It's kind of a strange thing that came up in the end of the 19th century, and then during the Cold War, we added things to it. We had to add God and other things to it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I gave the original Pledge of Allegiance. In the 1950s, we added God. I didn't think that was necessary. I still don't think it's necessary. We've done some really serious things with adding God. It's like a bumper sticker from the Pledge of Allegiance. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I ramble on here, study your history. Look at things. Learn. There's so many things to see and so many things to learn. Study John Locke. I think you'll find it rather fascinating. Thank you.